So Wrexham, after winning 4 in a row over the festive period, have failed to win their last 2 games at home to Norwich and Leicester. And DragonSports want me to analyse something. And that's Wrexham dropping points from winning positions. Because they've done so more than any other team in the division this season. That's not the sort of stat that you want connected to your football team. And they want me to wonder whether it's about mentality or tactics or strategy, and often these things are all tied up together. So I've done a deep dive, I've watched a lot of video, and I've got some thoughts. So Wrexham have scored the first goal in Championship matches 16 times this season, and only Coventry, the league leaders, have scored the first goal in more games this season. That's a very good stat to be connected to, but Wrexham have only won 7 of those 16 games, and that is terrible conversion from taking the lead to seeing out a win for 3 points. Only Coventry and Watford have a better record in games where they've conceded first. So Wrexham, when it comes to chasing the game, one of the best teams in the league. Another quite confusing stat when you're looking for answers is that only 3 teams have conceded more in the last 15 minutes of games than Wrexham, which suggests a weakness at the end of games. But only 3 teams have scored more goals than Wrexham in the last 15 minutes of games in the Championship. So Wrexham are a couple of teams in one, really. And I don't think it's that unusual, to be honest. There's a clear picture being painted that they are better chasing games than being chased. And that could be a tactical thing. That could be a mentality thing, of course. It could be both. I think when we look at the tactical side of the game, Wrexham's approach out of possession is fairly passive. They sit relatively deep. They do press at times and they have midfield ball winners, but it's not a constant factor of their out of position or defensive structure or mentality. They do face a lot of shots because of that. Teams get into Wrexham's final third fairly easily. They don't get in behind the defence very often. They don't create many good chances, but they do get close enough to goal to have a go. They face the 4th most shots in the league and the 3rd most shots on target in the league. So they're obviously a good team. They're doing well in the league. They're pushing for the playoffs, but they face a lot of shots. And that's a tactical thing, really. Now, they don't give up many big chances, as I say. That's a really, really good thing. But what this does, allowing a lot of shots at your goal, it leaves you open to basically bad luck in terms of deflected strikes. And there's more on that later. Defending deep and being passive and taking this approach out of possession isn't automatically a bad thing. A few years ago in the Championship, everyone thought you had to press high up the pitch, and then teams were just getting picked off and they were so open. This approach has served Wrexham so well under Phil Parkinson that it would be unusual if they just went away from it completely. But it possibly goes some way to explaining why, when they go ahead and a team naturally sits a bit deeper, trying to protect what it has, that they might open themselves up to teams coming onto them and getting late goals. But I think the most important thing is to go through the individual cases that we're talking about. Go through individual matches and look at the goals that they're conceding. See if there are any patterns, really. And when I do that, I'm just not that worried, right? So Leicester, midweek, Wrexham should have won that game. The better side, very, very clearly. And Leicester scored from a set piece right at the end. Vestergaard picking up a scrap and firing in. It was only Leicester's 2nd shot in the whole of the second half. It wasn't the case that Wrexham, holding on to a lead, were showing a bad mentality, were getting nervous, were letting Leicester onto them. No, this was a good performance in the second half. It's obviously not positive to concede a set-piece goal, but let's not pretend this is a huge issue for Wrexham. They've got one of the best defensive records in the league from set-pieces defensively, so this isn't a repeated issue, something that's happened loads and loads. They've got the highest aerial duel win percentage in the whole division, so when it comes to the aerial side of the game, Wrexham are really well stocked. The game before, against Norwich, they get back to 1-1, having gone behind, and then they concede the goal that wins it for Norwich from Jovan Makama. This is a goal on the break, a goal in transition, a classic Championship 25-26 goals. All the teams are trying to create these opportunities, and Wrexham in general are quite good at avoiding these opportunities, but they have been punished at times. They've conceded the 5th most fast break goals in the league. We're still only talking about 1 every 5 games. So again, this isn't tripping them up in every single match, but it is something they are quite susceptible to. And in that goal, maybe there's a few things you can look at. Individual quality in terms of 1v1 defending when there's a lot of spaces to cover. That's not where Wrexham's midfield or centre-backs are most comfortable. And I think both in that midfield zone and then at the top of the pitch with Makama's movement and pace, both the central midfield and centre of defence struggled with that move from Norwich. So that's a goal that they conceded. Again, there aren't many other examples like that. So I don't think that's a repeated pattern. Against Swansea, they were 1-0 up and they lost 2-1. The goals were a heavily deflected strike from the edge of the box and a complete goalkeeping howler. Okonkwo's been one of the best keepers in the league this season, and that was his biggest clanger. I'd be surprised if he does another error like that again this season. So again, a repeated issue. What, a deflected strike and a keeper howler? No, I wouldn't say so. Anything to do with mentality? I wouldn't necessarily say so, not confidently anyway. Watford, they were 1-0 up. Then they went 2-1 down, and then Wrexham scored a late equaliser, showing that they do have that character when they're chasing games. The goals they conceded, a heavily deflected strike from outside the box, which flew into the top corner. And then at the back post, they just switched off and the extra man at the back post scored for Watford. So that's probably the only thing that I've noticed that has tripped Wrexham up on more than one occasion in these games. Against Preston, they were 1-0 up. They drew 1-1. It was a problem defending the back post. Longman got dominated by Harrison Armstrong, who had an initial shot with his head. It was pushed back to him and he smashed in the rebound. And then Middlesbrough away, Wrexham are 1-0 up, and then Hayden Hackney scores a back post header. It's not really something that Hackney does very often. That suggests a weakness defending the back post. It was Kabore in that instance. So of all of the individual instances of Wrexham giving up leads when they've been ahead in games, the only repeated issue has been defending the back post. And with Kabore now back from injury, and with him hopefully being able to be a stronger defender than Longman has been in his absence, how much of an issue will that continue to be? How much will that trip them up? I'm not really sure. And frankly, when we get to Borough away, we're going back 3 months now. We're going back 16 games. And if you've watched Wrexham this season, you know that they're a different team to what they were 3 months ago, 16 games ago. So I don't really see the point of analysing games from even further back in the season. So my main issues, in answer to the question I was posed, is back post defending and some bad luck. There's a lot of heavily deflected strikes finding their way into the corner. I don't personally look at Wrexham and think there's a massive mentality issue, and that's why they happen to be the team that have dropped the most points from winning positions. I don't look at Wrexham and think that's a soft touch. They're not good enough defending their box. They're a little bit weak, either physically or mentally. I don't see that. So even though the stat is there and the stat is true, I don't think you have to just say those things as a way of explaining it away. I think you have to appreciate a couple of things. The strength of this league. Wrexham are up against teams who are far better than all of the teams they've been playing over the last few years. The players at this level have so much quality that they will hurt you. And maybe the passiveness out of possession and how deep they sit out of possession when they're holding on to leads, maybe that's inappropriate when you're up against a higher calibre of player that can hurt you more from 20, 25 yards than the players in League One, League Two and the National League. But I'm not necessarily sure of that. Like, Wrexham's defensive record could be better, but certainly could be a lot worse as well. Overall, doing the analysis for this video leaves me quite encouraged about Wrexham. I don't think they're far off at all. In their last 2 games against Norwich and Leicester, it's frustrating not to win when you've won 4 in a row before that. But to me, they're clearly the better side in those games. They've taken the most shots, they've created more. That's a really good sign, I think, for the next 18 games this season. So I don't think this is a huge issue that's doomed to trip Wrexham up forever, that will continue to be a feature that dogs them from now on to the end of the season. It might do, but I think there's a chance it might not. I'd be more inclined to think that the next 18 games will see a better record when it comes to seeing out leading positions. And given Wrexham are only 2 points off the playoffs, that gives me confidence in my prediction from 2 weeks ago on NTT20's mid-season predictions that Wrexham genuinely might well make the Championship playoffs come the end of the season. And wouldn't that be exciting? So what have I missed, Wrexham fans? What is the real reason behind you guys being at the top of the table for teams dropping points from winning positions? I would say you have to be in winning positions to even be in the position to drop points from winning positions, if that makes sense. So let me know, how much of an issue is this, and what are the aspects of it that I might have missed with my own analysis? Make sure you subscribe to the DragonSports YouTube channel and head to dragonsports.co.uk for all the best Welsh sports news.